Namaste and welcome back to the Kapil Gupta Career Pod Show, where we explore life, purpose, growth, and the path to becoming our highest selves, not just professionally, but personally and spiritually too. And today's episode is very special. I have with me a man whose work inspires transformation at a soul level. Someone who blends science and spirit, mind and heart, consciousness and community. Rahul George, the founder of iHypnosis Life. He has spent over 21 years studying the human mind and the human soul, exploring hypnosis, NLP, identity rewiring, emotional healing, and powerful inner transformation. And he's the host of iHypnosis Life Coaching Journeys podcast, where he has interviewed more than 94 global healers, coaches, and change makers. Unfortunately, I'm one of them, sharing raw, real human journeys. He also runs a solo podcast, iHypnosis Life Healer Coach Speaks, where he shares deep insights on mindset, community, power, flow, abundance, spirituality, and authentic expression. And in this episode, we will dive into some of the most important themes of personal evolution: childhood programming, beliefs, identity, clarity, and purpose, and how one can truly reset, rewire, and rise into the life they are meant to live. So, if you've ever wondered, why do I repeat certain patterns? And why do I feel stuck or limited even when I'm trying hard? Or how do I shift my identity and step into my purpose? Stay with us because Raul is here to share wisdom, tools, and his life experience that can help you rewire your inner story and reclaim your true power. So let's begin and invite him to the podcast. Hi, Rahul.
Wow, Kafil, that was amazing.
Thank you. You
That was
deserve that.
amazing. I could feel you and your spirit because I've been very, very fortunate, very blessed that I got to meet you 3 years, more than 3 years now.
More than 3 years.
The conversations that we've had offline and online in the pod, where, as you very rightly said, there was a time I got to invite you on my pod. There was a time you invited me on your pod. This is, many seasons ago in both our, journeys as podcast hosts. But to be here today like this, it's beautiful. It's like coming full circle. And thank you for those very, very powerful, very glowing words. And it just reminded me of, when we talk about transformation, it truly is a journey. And the best part is you don't know who you're becoming until you have moments like this where you kind of reflect back and go, wow, yeah, it has been a journey. And that most importantly, this is not just about you, not just about me, but it's about, your listeners, people who get to, connect with you on a daily basis, people who look to you for that insight and inspiration. And my intention today is, of course, as I listen to your questions, to be able to, I was at a retreat just recently, and there was this concept of the L. Now, normally, the younger the audience, this usually means like L as in loser. I don't know if this is going video, but definitely what I was saying was basically imagine an L in front of your face. L usually means the loser. But here, if you turn the direction of that L, it's as if something from above something divine, something from the universe, something from God is coming through you into other people. And as people who have been knowingly or unknowingly chosen to do this work as podcast hosts, we get to channel that energy and share it with the world, share it with our own unique audiences. So, my intention over the course of our time together today would be to channel some of that, so that if there are people out there, even if it's one person or hundreds of thousands of people that are moved by the message that is received, their lives will be better, and when their lives are better, our lives are better. So I'm really looking forward to the magic even now as it's unfolding. So thank you once again for having me on your show, and
See, it's
I'm
the
ready.
pleasure is all mine, Rahul, and I've never hidden this, and I've said multiple times that I love listening to you. And I know when our listeners will listen to this podcast, they'll also fall in love not only with your knowledge but your voice as well, right?
Thank you for saying that. Amazing.
And because without further ado, let's get
Mm,
started, right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
as we are aware that you've spent like 21 years evolving from the corporate world into the world of transformation, right?
Yes.
So, can you take us to
Mm,
that turning point?
mm,
What shifted inside you,
beautiful.
and how did you know it was time to walk this path?
Oh, love that question. It's like goosebumps. Um, for context, right? Especially if you're talking to students, maybe you've chosen a path and you believe that you're meant to be on that path. Um, Sometimes, if that's the case, you will continue on, and then you'll finish your higher studies, and then you'll go on to do a job in that area. Or there can be a time in your life where you realize that maybe you were told to do something and you did it up to a point, but then somewhere inside of you, you start to hear that voice that is just beginning to get louder and louder, and that's telling you that you're actually meant to do something else. You're meant to do something more. And when that's the case, of course, it's so important to listen. So, to your question, Kapil, or as I like to call you, Kapil Bhai, it's that moment that I had. Now, if I go back in time, this was, I would say, in 2000, 2001, where that voice started to get louder and louder. It was almost like a banging drum. It just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And no matter, the successes that I had in my career at that time, I made some bold decisions. I left home, for uh, let's say pursuing something bigger. I was working in advertising at that time in Bangalore, and I was like, okay, if I want to do this, I might as well go to the mecca of advertising, as it was called back in the day, which was Bombay, right? So I did that. I went there. I worked with some of the biggest advertising names, some of the biggest stars. But in spite of all of that, I realized very quickly that this voice just kept getting louder and louder and louder until I knew I had to listen, right? So, as someone who's a student, maybe you know the path that you're meant to be on, and so you'll go and live that life, or maybe you're meant to go on a different path. And so for me, that was the journey that I had, where I chose to go a different path, and that kind of started me off. As someone once asked me, "Do you know what you're going to do?" I said, "I know what I don't want to do," and that was my, that was my start point.
Right. See, this is actually, the puzzling question, even in the minds of our teenagers,
Yeah.
what to do.
Yes. Yes.
Usually parents choose a safe path,
Yeah.
and the teenagers have that risk taking ability.
Yes.
They want to
Yes.
explore things.
Yes.
And then this, tussle happens in the families,
100%. 100%. Right.
right?
And just for
That
context, I was very, very, I must also, as they say, give credit where it's due. I was very fortunate that I didn't get too much of visible pushback or that tussle from, in this case, from my mom.
Mhm.
But there was definitely a lot of that, it was more environmental, because what I wanted to do was still very, very new, right? So it's like saying today we talk about coaching, we talk about healing. These are things that are very more and more mainstream today.
Hmm.
But back then, none of this stuff existed.
Right.
So,
Right.
it had it's like I was way ahead of the market at that time, meaning that my idea
Hmm.
was not yet ready for the market. So that was a different kind of push or a pushback. Like I wanted
Exactly.
to do that, but the market wasn't ready. So in my case, that's what I had to deal with. But I do know from experience also that if you're in your teens or let's say if you're in your teens, you may want to do something, but your parents have a different idea, or your teachers or people who you look up to, they may have a
Hmm.
different idea. So that definitely there can be a tussle. But this is also a good test of how much do you really want it, right?
Right. 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 And after 21 years, I would say it was a great decision because where we stand today.
Yeah,
Right.
very, very true, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
and again, it's like um, that expression of hindsight 2020, that it's only in hindsight that we realize that okay, I made a right decision, or I'm glad I make. So I won't even go as far as right versus wrong, because
Hmm.
as we get older, if you're in your
Right.
teens and you move to your 20s and 30s, and then later, you'll realize in life there's no such thing as a right or wrong decision.
Yes.
It's more like
Exactly.
how do you make the most of the decision that you made, because that will lead you to the next decision that you're going to make, right? Sometimes we live life thinking ye sahi
Hmm.
hai wo galat hai. You'll realize later on in life that actually
Yes.
life is shades of gray, you know
Yes.
so coming back to what you said, which
Yeah.
is that yeah, I'm glad I made the decision, but like you
Hmm.
rightly said, it's not like it was easy and everything was hunky-dory. There
Hmm.
were
Right.
twists and turns along the way for sure.
Yes. 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 Okay. Now moving on to next part of this,
Mm-hmm.
because we are talking about teenagers, childhood,
Mm,
early
mm,
decisions.
mm.
So even I've seen you talking about the childhood identity scripts
Yes,
and
beautiful.
emotional blueprints,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So how do early experiences shape a person's destiny? And how
Mm,
can one begin rewriting those
mm.
invisible scripts?
Beautiful.
So what do you have to
I'm going
say
to
about
answer your question in the reverse, right? I love
it?
your
Okay.
question because before we even go about rescripting or rewriting our blueprints, it's important first to recognize what our blueprints are. So if you're somebody somewhere in that 17 to say 21, you know, let's say that age,
Mhm.
what's important is that how quickly can you start noticing what are your patterns, right? Say, for example, if you get angry, what's your pattern? If you feel more often not, suddenly out of the blue, you feel sad, what's that pattern? Like, what is it that's triggering it, right? Is it something that's external? Is it something that's internal? So, my point being that when you start to become more aware, more conscious of these patterns, that is what will start to get you more of an understanding of what's happening in your life. So, I had in fact written down when we started today, my first point was childhood blueprints. So, starting to understand what your blueprints are will definitely help you understand what's going on in your life, and therefore how do you rewrite or rescript it. And the good news, of course, today, in where, of course, I think at the time of this recording, we're in 2025. I know we're in 2025. So when you make it a point to also reach out to people who have an expertise in this area, which means people who, and not just me, but people like me who have spent a fair bit of time, like you as well, in this area of dealing and working through understanding what the blueprint is, why do we do what we do, right? As someone who's in that 17 to 21, for instance, that age group, when you start talking to people like this who you genuinely believe that you trust, you will be able to uncover that, okay, if you behave a certain way today, it didn't happen overnight. It's something that you probably were doing even before age 6, 7, or 8. And
Right.
so, for let's say primarily your audience, It's a gift that they get to make that shift now. I'll give you a comparative. My audience is primarily much older, right? It's like saying my core audience is basically probably like the parents of your core audience. By that I mean that these are people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who today are saying, you know what, life isn't over. Let me make a shift now in my life. So even
Mm,
they do the same thing, which is they go back in time because they realize that they behave a certain way today, right? Whether it's procrastination, whether it's putting things off, whether it's doing things that they shouldn't be doing, even though they don't want to do it. And then when they go back in time, they're able to understand that, okay, yeah, something happened, or certain situations happened, certain behaviors, or certain you know there were certain ways in which they behaved before the age of 8. And the good news is that it's in the past. So when you relook at it with the right lens, you can change the way you think about yourself. So bring it back to your audience. The important thing is that if now you decide to do that, then when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, you will be always thanking yourself that I'm glad that I did it now, versus wait another 30 to 40 years and then make a shift, right?
mm,
The good news is that it doesn't matter which age you're at, you can change, but I say, why wait?
mm.
Let's start
Right.
now.
See, if we talk about my
Mm-hmm,
core audience
mm-hmm,
and yours,
mm-hmm,
I would say, see, aging is a journey, right? It's a
mm-hmm,
life
mm-hmm,
journey.
mm-hmm.
At an early age, we say the patterns begin to form and we don't
Correct,
even realize it, right?
correct,
And
right.
by the time person is in 30s or 40s or 50s,
Yeah.
those beliefs, those patterns are already set, right?
Hmm.
The person does things in a certain way
If I
because of
may, let me put a disclaimer there. And if I
that.
don't,
Okay.
I'm failing in my professional capacity. We used to think that the patterns are set. And I say this also because when you look around people, when you look around the world and you see people in their 30s and 40s and 50s, sometimes you wonder, why are they doing this? They're padhe likhe hain, they're like educated, they have life experiences, maybe they're well traveled, they work in, let's say, uh, known companies, so they're doing well. At least on the surface, it looks like they're doing well. Even if it's, say, someone who's a homemaker, they've seen enough life, so one would assume that they know better. And so we think कि हाँ उनका pattern fix हो चुका है, right? They're stuck.
Okay. Hmm.
But a lot of this is has to do with what they're telling themselves. If they tell
Exactly.
themselves, I can't change, I am like this only. And now imagine someone, and it's, if you go back in time, it started somewhere around this age of between 12 and 15, or 16 and 20, where we're
Okay.
like, मैं तो ऐसा ही हूँ. I'm like this only.
Mm.
I can't be tidy. I can't be on time. I'm useless. Um, right? Like these are things that we tell ourselves at that age. And now imagine saying that same thing almost like a jap, right? Almost like like you're singing there's a thumbs up there. Singing uh, um, like a bhajan literally to yourself for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Obviously, you will believe that you're stuck in that. But the good news and the way science is progressing is that you can change your brain patterns, right? That's the reason why there are people like us who are doing the work that we do. And I know, Kapil, you as well, Kapil Bhai, you use handwriting as, when I say handwriting as in graphotherapy, as a way to help people change their patterns, right?
Yes.
So for me, I always look at it like this. It just means that we can change. The
Yeah.
sooner we become aware of it, that will actually trigger the change that we can make and create that impact in our lives, and therefore by extension in the lives of other people.
See, I fully agree, Rahul, on this. And
Mhm.
you kind of, forayed into my next question. Okay. Because people are stuck, right? In
Yes,
fact,
yes.
they feel stuck and that is because of their limiting beliefs, right?
Yes.
And if I, you as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
mentor to so many
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
in your experience, if I may ask you,
Mm-hmm.
what are the some of the most common beliefs that hold people back, and
Mm.
how does hypnosis help break them?
Mm. Nice. I love that. So, what are some of the common beliefs? Right. This is something I discovered recently when I was doing a lot more deep diving. Um, if you look at it, there are one is the fear. Okay. So we say one is the fear of failure. That's a very common one. Some people, I discovered I had that, which is the fear of success. Fear of failure, we understand. Nobody wants to look like a fool. Nobody wants to feel like you're 5 years old again. And so, just like how when we were in the classroom, the moment the teacher said, come to the board and write on the board, or the moment the teacher said, raise your hand, and you didn't want to raise your hand because you didn't want to make a mistake. Those are like the typical times when we realize that, there's a fear of failure. कि गलत जवाब दे दिया तो then it's like not like the KBC गलत जवाब, and it's sort of like a meme in itself. But in life we don't want to make a mistake because we don't want to feel small. The ulta, the opposite, also is very important, which is for a lot of us, we don't want to succeed. I say that meaning we have the fear of succeeding, because what happens is when you succeed, you'll notice most often your friends will change, right?
Hmm.
And the older you get, your life circumstances will change. Where you go, who you hang out with will also change when you start to get more successful. Because think about it like this, and I'm sure your audience has noticed this. The more you start becoming successful, your old friends may not be able to keep pace. And
Right.
maybe once in a while you're okay hanging out with them. But most of the time, you want to be with other people who are like you. And that's a very, very common human trait where we want to be with people like us. Like you and I love the kind of conversations that we have because we are very similar on many fronts, right? So
Right.
if either of us was not doing what we're doing now, our conversations would be harder to have,
Yes.
right? So coming
Agree.
back to your
Yeah.
question, that definitely one is the fear, one is fear of failure, one is fear of success. Then of course we're talking about the kind of conversations that we have with ourselves, which is we talk to ourselves as if we are not good enough. We almost like we are speaking in someone else's language, or we're speaking in our own minds, telling ourselves that, oh, you're not good enough. So these are some of the very typical things that we do as human beings. We tend to talk down to ourselves. We tend to tell ourselves we're not good enough. And sometimes you might notice this is something we heard somebody else tell us. It could be a teacher. It could be a parent. It could be a sibling, somebody who we look up to, who would have told us in one particular context that, oh, you're not good at this, or don't make a mistake. And somewhere we have kind of channeled that. And so we tend to repeat that in our mind. Now, coming to the second part of your question, Kapil Bhai, which is how can hypnosis change this? Now, the way I look at it, one part is hypnosis, the other part is what we call neuro linguistic programming. As the name suggests, in neuro linguistic programming, which is NLP for short, the L part, which is the other L, which is linguistics, is it's a very
Linguistic.
important component. What do I mean by that? The language that we are constantly, even right now, as you and I are also having this, we're recording this podcast, we are having these inner conversations with ourselves right now. The way we say things to ourselves, the way, the language that we use, that will have a big shift or a change in our own physiology. Which means if you were, for example, you or me, if we were telling ourselves, oh, I'm not doing a good job, or people won't like this, or people will think I'm a fraud, or whatever it is, that if I was to be telling myself that, or if you were to be telling yourself that, your confidence and your belief in what you're doing will start to go down to zero. But on the other hand, if you're like, yeah, I love this, people are going to get a lot of value out of this, and people are going to really benefit from this. When you're saying this to yourself, knowingly or unknowingly, you will continue to flow. You will continue to, more importantly, enjoy this in the moment. And that is what will create more. So, why did I say this?
Hmm.
When we talk about hypnosis, when we talk about neuro linguistic programming, for me, I see them both as one, right? Because one came from the other. Hypnosis has been around for thousands of years. NLP is something that's now just a little over 50 years old, but NLP has focused on some of the most important parts of hypnosis and codified it, right? It's literally like you're learning, coding. So
Okay.
it's a way to be able to make the most of this body of hypnosis, which is literally thousands of years old. Something that I always like to remind my students and my clients: we all know the world's greatest hypnotist. You know who I'm talking about?
I would like to hear it from you only.
So we are all. I'm reminding each of your listeners. We all know the world's greatest hypnotist, who's our mum, our mother, right? From the
Yes.
earliest of times, it's like you're crying and they'll be like, "Oh, they go shoo," and then they like put the food in, right? So it's like this whole
Yes.
concept of being able to change our mood. Most often, it is a lot to do with this innate inner ability to be, you know, naturally good at hypnosis. Obviously, our mums have had this from the dawn of time, because our mums have always been the one that brought us into the world, right? It's
Yes.
like that old line, "Mere paas maa hai." We all have maa, regardless of whether you knew her for a day or you've known her all your life. We still all have maa. So that's one part. When we talk about hypnosis, there is the other angle also, which is the more deeper version of hypnosis, right? So, like for example, when I do the work that I do, there's something called the conversational hypnosis, which is, I usually do more of that, which is me when I'm talking to you, based on what you're saying, I will make adjustments or reflect back to you in a way that will make you pause and think about what you're saying, and you will probably find yourself changing the way you're saying something into something more positive, into something more, building your own self belief. And in that, it's very, very therapeutic, because if if you were thinking really bad about yourself till 5 minutes ago, but for the next 5 minutes, if you start to actually notice that you're believing more in what you're saying, and you're noticing that yes, you are good at what you do because you reached here. I'm
Hmm.
sure, in especially when we talk about students, a lot of them have seen a lot of difficulty around them. A lot of them may even know of students who have, had some very, very tough experiences. There are students also, like today when we talk about, and I'm just going to say it, when we talk about, suicide, there are things like this where
Right.
they have seen, they know, and because of the world that we live in, social media, they are more aware today than they were ever before, right? But in spite of all of that, they are here today, right? Your student right now listening to this is present, is believing that there is a future ahead. That means
Right.
that they already are powerful. And
Hmm.
every moment when they remember and recognize that they are powerful, like you are powerful, that in itself is you telling yourself, and you're making that a deeper and a deeper and a deeper groove, so that it becomes harder for you to believe that you're not good enough.
Beautiful. Wow. It'll take time to, uh, fully agree. Yeah.
Right?
It's beautiful.
Mm,
Yes. See, as you just mentioned a little
mm,
while ago about the graphotherapy part I'm doing,
mm-hmm,
and we actually, in that science also,
mm-hmm,
we are able to see this challenge of fear of
mm,
success, fear of
mm,
failure,
mm.
that low confidence, just through the handwriting part,
Exactly.
right? Just by the
Exactly.
handwriting traits, because we see that those
100%.
challenges many a times, you know, even handwriting is a mirror to our personality, and
Correct.
whatever we are, it shows in
Mm,
that.
mm,
And what you do
mm,
is at a different level altogether.
mm.
And of course, listening to you once again, it's an icing on the cake.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
No, no,
Bye.
all right. But see,
Yeah.
nowadays, because you see, you just said a little while ago that
Mm,
in the beginning, people were
mm-hmm,
not so much into mentors,
mm.
coaches,
True.
but now it is like everywhere. When we go
Yes.
to the social media,
Correct.
some advertisement props up, some motivational coach. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
everybody talks about motivation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we see through that very social media, it is actually getting harder to live your normal
Mm.
life,
Mm.
because sometimes we see, or we just imagine that our
Yeah.
life should be similar to those what we see on
Mm.
Instagram. The
Mm.
Instagram life is different
Correct.
and the
Yeah.
real life is different,
True.
right?
True. True.
So I would say today we live in a world obsessed with motivation.
True.
And
True.
you speak about identity transformation instead.
Nice.
So, what is the difference? And
Beautiful.
why does identity
Mm.
matter more
Mm.
than the motivation?
I
So, I
love that.
would definitely
I
want you to
love your
answer that.
question, Kapil Bhai. That was really powerful because as I was listening to you, there are two things that came to me. And it links in very, very powerfully with what we call the identity transformation. Right. And I know even for people, let's say in their 40s, 50s, 60s, social media has a certain let's say it tries very hard on a daily basis to change who they are and what they want in life, right? But if we go to, say, the audience between 16, 17, and about 21, 22, if you look at that audience, I would say the simplest way of answering your question is this. And this is, literally you can treat it like a hack. There are two questions which are very, very important. The first question is make sure that you constantly, almost like you're doing a daily exercise. If you want to learn a language, you practice it every day, you'll get proficient in it. You want to learn how to code, you code every day, you'll get proficient in it. You want to learn how to let's say play an instrument, a guitar, piano, whatever it is, you play that every day, you'll get proficient in it. Similarly, when you think about life, think in the most simplest way these two questions. The first question is to ask yourself this every morning when you wake up and every night before you go to bed. Ask yourself this one question, which is, what do you want? So, as you're listening to this, write down literally your name and then you put comma. And then the question is, what do you want? So, if I was listening, I would say, I would write Rahul, comma, what do you want? Right? That's a way to make it very practical. Now, a lot of times people may say, especially people who are, let's say in this, like, let's say somewhere between 17 and 21, a lot of them may say, I want that gadi shadi, I want that bangla, I want the world travel, all of that. And that's perfectly fine. I'm the last person to tell you that that's wrong or you shouldn't have it or whatever. That's why there are two questions. The first question is the what do you want question. The second question, which is really what will be the litmus test, which is then now that you've written down what you want, the second question is answer this diligently, answer this, from your heart, like they say, shiddat say, answer this question, which is, what do you really want? And underline the word really. Because if you say, I want to travel the world, or I want to be a creator on social media, when you ask the second question, which is, what do you really want? And you really give yourself the time to think about it, in my understanding and in my experience also, I'll say this, whether you are 71 or whether you are 17, if you practice this question, meaning this question writing exercise on a regular basis, I can promise you this, in the next 60 to 90 days, your decisions will change for the better.
Cool.
The possibilities of social media trying to mold your thinking will come down. What does that mean? The clearer you become about what you want, you will actually start to unfollow a lot of people, but not because I'm saying it, not because Rahul is saying it. It's because you will realize, oh, these people don't really map what I really want in life, right? And if you look at it, ultimately, we all want to be happy. We all want to feel joy. And we all want to be able to give that same joy and happiness to other people. So, coming back to your core question, which was everything about shifting your identity, in the work that I do on a daily basis, literally every single day, what I ask and I help my students and my clients, what I focus on is for them to get clear about the identity. So, remember, in choosing profession, someone will say, I'm a doctor. Technically, that is you saying your identity is you're a doctor. But the truth is, the doctor part is just a profession.
Right.
If we went deeper, and I'm sure we can, at some point, we can unpack it, but for now, how do I convert that into an identity statement? You would say, I am healing, I am health.
Hmm.
If you said that and you believed it, then choosing a profession of being a doctor or someone who's into fitness, it automatically matches, right?
Right.
But on the other hand, if you just said I'm a doctor, why? Because people get to respect doctors. Invariably there will be a disconnect because you're
Right.
doing it for technically the wrong reasons. Because being a doctor, so for your students who are studying to become doctors, it is literally years and years and years of hard work. If you don't know why you're doing it, right, it can cause a lot of difficulties. But on the other hand, if you know that I am love, I am health, and then you're choosing to be a doctor, you will always look forward every day to your studies while you're studying abroad. You will always look forward to working in whichever hospital that you're working in to gain the skills, and ultimately, where you are by profession, by vocation, you're a doctor, but by identity, you are what is the core of being a doctor, which is health, which is happiness, which is joy. I mean, if you think about it, the happiest doctors are the ones who already are that,
Right.
right? So,
Right.
while I've said this, I'd love to hear you sort of decode it because you know the audience that you talk to on an ongoing basis. If I've missed something, do sort of like redirect it back to me, Kapil
No,
Bhai.
no, no. You actually said the right thing because see,
Mm-hmm.
many a times when students come to me, right,
Mm,
they say we are not sure what we want to
mm,
do,
mm,
or somebody would say, I don't know what my
mm.
purpose is, right?
Correct.
So they are
Correct.
kind of lost. And
Yes.
many a times when they talk to other people to gain clarity,
Yeah.
instead of getting clarity, they get more confused about
True.
their direction.
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
So because everybody has their own way of saying things,
Yes.
right? Many a
Correct.
times I've seen people that, let's say, somebody comes to me and
Mm-hmm.
asks about a field in which I am not successful.
Mm.
I would actually derail him. Oh, this field is not good. ये अच्छी नहीं है. Instead of realizing myself that I was the one who wasn't able to excel in
Correct.
that field,
Yeah.
the field is good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in this way, what you are saying, that when even identity can be merged with purpose also,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 100%.
So that step will actually help a person r-
Yes.
get more clarity or how to
100%.
approach his inner self.
Yes.
So if I got it right, the
100%.
way
In fact,
what
I want to add one thing here because you said something very important. If I go back 20 years, the sort of the magic words were um, live your passion. Hmm?
yes.
Find your passion, सब कुछ clear हो जाएगा, right? That was sort of
Hmm.
like what was being marketed 20 years ago.
Hmm.
Okay. Now it's interesting because if life is also cyclical, right? Just like the seasons. And now, especially if you go online, there's a lot of conversation about purpose. The one thing
Yes.
I have learned in these last 20 plus years is whether it was passion or whether it is purpose, which is the language today, sometimes, and let me say it like this, most often you may not know what your purpose is at this point. especially if you're somewhere in that early stage of life where you've not yet worked, you've not had like a drive from the age of 4, 5, 6, 7. Because I'm sure, even amongst your audience, they will probably know of their some of the very very few, but some of their friends who, from age 5 only, were very passionate about veterinary science, as in like taking care of, let's say, animals, right? Or
Mm.
medicine, or structural engineering, or something very absolutely abstract, random to a 5, 6, 7 year old, but they were always obsessed with it, right? So somewhere there's a certain percentage of children who already know, but for most people in that first phase of life where they've not yet worked in the world to realize what they want to do, because it's one thing to have the idea, but the realization of that idea is what makes us either do more of it or less of it, right? So you may like drawing, but if you work in advertising and you don't enjoy it, you may find some other profession, some other vocation, which may or may not be connected to drawing, right?
Right.
As an example. So my point is that it's very important to remember. And I remember hearing somebody, unfortunately, I can't remember who specifically it was, but this is something that they said, which is true, that rather than trying to chase or hunt for your purpose, you do more of what you feel good about, what you feel good doing today. So
Mm.
if medicine or engineering or coding or communication, as simple examples, right? If any of these or whatever profession that you can think of, if you're like, this sounds kind of interesting, start there. Because also, the world that we live in today, in 3 to 5 years, a lot of these fields will change. Some of these
Right.
fields may no longer have the entry level uh, availabilities, simply because of this whole revolution that's happening in technology, right? And even the greatest minds today, when it comes to technology, they also are not really sure what's going to happen in 3 to 5 years. A lot of it is conjecture. They're assuming, looking at the numbers, they're like, "Acha, ye hone wala hai," that you know um, certain jobs are not going to exist. Will they? Won't they? Nobody knows until 3 to 5 years happens. But the point I'm making is that if you genuinely feel, like when you're thinking about it and when you start studying it, and then when you actually go and work in that field, right? If you enjoy it, do more of it until you don't. Because the beautiful part today, unlike 15, 20, 30 years ago, is even if you change your line, you're not going to be looked upon as somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, right? You may start in
Mm.
banking, you may end up somewhere completely different 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and that's totally fine, provided you're willing to bring yourself to that work. This is where, like you said about the identity, we also talk about beliefs and values. So the beliefs that you have in yourself and the values that you live by. So the values are, for example, discipline, being true, right? Sticking to what, like if you say something, you follow through and you do it. Like these are the kind of values that if you bring them and if you live by them, no matter what career you're exploring or what vocation that you're doing later on, as long as you're operating from here, this is what will make people want to work with you. It's actually what will make people want to hire you in the first place,
Mm.
right?
Right. Right.
So since you mentioned the keyword of purpose, and in fact in my community I always sign off by saying, remember to live your purpose, not find
Purpose.
your purpose, to live your purpose. But the presupposition there is that if you don't know what it is right now, that's totally fine. Sooner or
Yes.
later your purpose will come and find you. Suddenly you'll be like, oh wow, I love doing this, let me do more of it. And then you're doing more of it and you're like, let me do more of it.
Mm.
And before you know it, like you said, I didn't know I would be doing it this way 22 years later, but I knew
Yeah.
what I didn't want to do. So in my case, I knew what I didn't want to do. So I was like, okay, if I know what I don't want to do, let me start to explore what's out there. And eventually it led me to where I am today and doing the things that I'm doing today.
Right. Right. Great. No, it's actually the right way to approach things. No problem.
Mm,
And See, earlier, like I started with motivation,
Mm,
right?
mm,
But now, even today,
mm-hmm.
in a time where self healing has become a buzzword,
Yes.
right?
Mm, mm,
So, how do you distinguish between true inner work
mm.
and
Interesting.
spiritual bypassing?
Ooh. Let me pause and ask you, when you define spiritual bypassing, I'll anyway give you my version, but I find it very
Mhm.
intriguing. That's why I'm asking you. Like, because I've never heard this expression before. Spiritual
Okay.
bypassing. Could you sort of expand on it a little bit?
See, what I mean to say is like, see, people are learning new techniques, right?
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
and self
Ah,
going the self healing way.
got
But
it.
then there is certain inner work
Got it.
happening. Then
Got it.
we need not connect to the spiritual aspect of it
Mm,
and totally have it, more of, you can say, the practical aspect of it
got it.
instead of going spiritual.
Got it.
For
Now I
example,
understood.
let us
Mm,
not connect meditation to any religious aspect of it. Let
mm,
it be a tool to self heal.
got it. Got it. Okay, so I'll answer that. It's like there's a simple way of framing it.
Hmm.
So you're an amazing question right now, Kapiba. You said spiritual bypassing. How does that, when you look at spiritual bypassing versus the whole self healing that people are now exploring, uh, not just the older age group but also the younger age group, right? There's a lot more conversation about it. There's a lot more focus on mental health. Um, I would say it like this: maybe initially, people are choosing self healing or non spiritual practices, and that's totally fine. The reason why I'm saying that is because eventually everybody will have their own personal experience and a realization that we are much more than who we know we are. Let me simplify that. If you're sort of saying, I don't want to talk about a particular god, or I just want to only focus on healing within, it's totally fine to start like that, and everybody will have their own personal experience. But the truth is that eventually what you will find is that we are all connected to something much bigger than us. And so what you called the spiritual bypassing, um, everybody will have their own experience of it. That's why I don't know. That's why I'm pacing myself with this answer, which is I'm the last person who will tell you ye hoga ya nahi hoga.
Nee,
What I mean
actually,
is,
see what I'm
uh,
sorry to
no,
intervene.
please.
See, actually, the thing is that many a times we do use spiritual practices, right?
Yes.
And sometimes they help in the personal growth, but many a times they are against it also. So
Hmm.
it doesn't
Interesting.
work the same way in all circumstances, right?
Interesting.
And we do have like psychological wounds, we have emotional issues,
Sure.
we have
Sure.
difficult life circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like sidestepping the messy
Mm.
human side of life, right?
Right.
So that's what I meant to
Yeah.
say.
I would say it like this: when we start doing the healing work, the inner work, usually we will start from where we are and what we need the most. So some people may start, by focusing on, say, childhood trauma, which is now today it's becoming more and more of a
Right,
like more people are talking about it. Some people
right,
may start with mental health, right? Especially today, like people who are in that 16 to 21, 22 age group. There's a lot of talk about loneliness. There's a lot of talk about isolation because there's so much of input that we're getting that in a strange way people are feeling more alone, more alienated, right? So for people who are choosing to focus on self healing, they will initially start where they are. But you'll
okay,
notice eventually it'll all come back into an understanding that there's something much bigger than us that connects all of us,
Okay.
right? But again, it's not for me to tell you when it's going to happen.
Hmm.
It's not for me to tell you how it's going to happen. But each one has their own spiritual journey and their own spiritual path, and ultimately you will find yourself connected to other people in a way that probably you didn't think possible, right? But it will happen. I mean, that's
Ah,
why
right. Yes.
spirituality is universal, but the language, or let's say the dialect of it, will be different for each person. I don't know if that answers your question, but this is
No,
what's
no,
what's coming to me.
this is right. No, no, that's okay. And you rightly said that. And moving further, see, hypnosis.
Hmm.
Like you say, it is a science thousands of years old, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Similarly, we have a belief when we
Mm-hmm.
hear about hypnosis, right?
Correct. Oh yes.
Like, अगर
Hmm.
hypnosis को मैं इंडियन वर्जन में चला जाऊं,
हाँ.
जो hypnotism है, and
Mm-hmm.
we see a person holding the
Correct.
pendulum,
Correct.
और ठीक है ना,
Right.
और आप
Yeah.
बिल्कुल you give the control to the other person,
Right.
right? So I would say many people misunderstand
Correct.
hypnosis thinking it's mind control, right?
Right.
So for our listeners,
Yeah.
what really happens in hypnosis and NLP, and
Hmm.
how can they support
Hmm.
deep emotional transformation?
Hmm. I'll again start from the last part of your question. If you see, or if you choose to see hypnosis and NLP as a transformational tool, there's a lot of benefit that will come from it. Why am I saying that? Because whether it is preparing for a exam to get into a college, or whether it is preparing for life in a foreign university, or for that matter, whether it is preparing for any test, whether it's a, for lack of a better word, like a unit test or the main exam or practicals or whatever testing that's going to be happening in the life of a student, hypnosis and NLP are very, very powerful tools. I'll call them tools for now. Okay, because there are many, and today you just have to literally do like ChatGPT and you'll get like hundreds of different ways to be able to prepare yourself before you go to any of these places, whether it is a viva that you're about to attend, or whether it is to be able to get into a university, or while you're there to be able to go through the various tests that happen, because that's why you go to a college, to be tested. And as you get tested, you realize how much you know and how much you don't, and over a period of time when you graduate, you will have a better understanding of your subject matter, which you can then convert into getting a job, and then you sort of build your vocation, right? So there are a lot of tools out there today, thankfully, with access to information, whether it is YouTube, I'm sure, whether it is TikTok or Insta, maybe too short a time frame. I would say if you go to YouTube, if you go to um, any of the GPTs, you'll get the recipe for how to do it, right? And these are skills that all athletes, all high performing people use anyway. Okay, people who are in sales, people who are in, let's say, football, cricket, you name any sport, right? Anything to do with um, the psychology of it, like you call what they call sports psychology, in some form or the other, they are using the skills of NLP and hypnosis. Can you remind me again, what was the first part? Or you're talking about the early days of the understanding of what is hypnosis
Yes,
and
yeah,
right? And I think you also talked about giving control to somebody else, right? The
yeah.
truth is,
People feel that
people
somebody in
feel that someone else
hypnotism
is
is all of,
controlling you.
yes, yes, yes.
I get that. If you look at it, um, the element of control is actually always there with you. I'll say it again. Even if you say, "Oh, somebody hypnotized me," it is because you are the one who gave them that control, not the other way around.
Okay,
Think about
okay.
it, right?
Well, that's
When you
interesting.
see someone on, say, in a movie, a film star or a celebrity or an influencer. Let's go by influencers today. Okay, let's use that language. When you say an influencer, you are the one who's giving your control to them. You may think they are controlling you, but actually you're the one who's saying, here, I give you control over me so that I can get something in return. Whether that means for the moment to feel good. So like when you watch you know, a Tom Cruise or a Shah Rukh Khan movie or any of these, as an example, you're giving your control temporarily to somebody else so that you can feel better. You can feel like you are that hero dangling from the roof or, you know, flying across mountains or whatever it is, because technically you're the one who's given them that control. I know we don't think of it like that, but that's what it is, right? So the hypnosis is happening all the time. Classic example, and this has actually been proven. When you look at your phone, who decides whether you can leave your notification on or off?
Because us.
Us. We are the ones who say, yes, I will keep that ting on. Or, you know, I don't know if it's still there, but
Hmm.
um, WhatsApp or iMessage had that
It's
ting
still there.
ting, right?
Right.
So we are choosing to leave the notification on, which is basically like we are giving somebody else the permission to continue to hypnotize us. But
Okay.
if you make it a point to say, I'm going to turn on, like I keep 99% of my notifications off, unless it's something that like some apps, I want the notification to be on.
Hmm.
But otherwise, like my WhatsApp is off. So I get to choose when I want to go to it,
Right.
if that makes sense, right? So coming back
Yeah.
to what you were saying, yes, traditionally, when you look at it on TV, you know, there's a watch that's dangling or somebody holding a stick and it's like the magician saying, you know, do
Hmm.
this. Somehow on in media, they have created that persona
Right.
that you are powerless and they are taking charge of you. The truth is, and someone who has taken from someone who has studied this for more than 2 decades, more than 20 years, that 99.9% of the time, we are the ones who are giving them the power,
Okay.
right? So, which means that we can choose to tell ourselves something different. If you choose to
Hmm.
be, like they say, right? If you choose to be the hero of your story, what do you think is going to happen? In 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, your life's going to change. And that also, by the way, happens in the movies that we see. If you've
Right.
noticed, there are these movies of what they call movies of redemption, right? The hero starts by being very sort of tiny or timid or, you know, is not in control. And then something happens in their life. And then they go on this journey. And then ultimately, they become the hero because they've always been the hero,
Right.
right? In fact,
Hmm.
in storytelling, it's something that we call the hero's journey, right? Those of you who are
Right.
interested, you can Google it or chat GPT it and find out. There is literally something called the hero's journey, which is one of the most basic forms of telling a story. You start small, but you have these adventures along the way, and then you realize that, wow, I actually have had these superpowers all along, right?
Hmm.
And then you
Interesting.
become the hero of your own life. And in turn, you get to help other people realize that they themselves have that superpower. And if you look at, you know, your life, Kapibhai, or my own, or anybody who's in this space, somewhere along the way, we also have recognized that we are truly the hero of our own story. And now we have taken charge. And when we have taken charge, then we realize that it's not just about hero panti. It's about how can I inspire other people to recognize the hero in themselves. And
Right.
then they start to change.
Beautifully said. So now moving on to another dimension, because we
Mm-hmm.
have talked about it earlier also
Mm-hmm.
before the podcast, that you deeply emphasize the power of community, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I've heard many a times you saying
Mm-hmm.
that. So why do you believe inner
Mm.
transformation is stronger when done together
Nice.
rather than alone?
Beautiful. So, two reasons. One, from my own life experiences over the last, let's say, of the 20 plus years, If I look at the first 15 versus the last 5, when I was the student, when I was more in the student mode, and I was literally looking all over in the world for how I could be a better version of myself, I always did it at a point where, and also if you look at it globally, the concept of community was not that strong. Okay. So whenever I went, whether it was here in India or whether it was abroad, whenever I went to study these techniques or ways in which I could be a better version of myself, it was always in sort of like a, I'm in class, I'm learning something, and then I go back to my own universe where I'm all alone. So if you're trying to learn something new and you're on your own, the time it takes for you to learn versus when you're um, in a community and you're learning together, it's very, very different. So, something I have understood is that if you really want to be able to learn and you want to be able to learn quickly, when you're able to do that with more people who are like you, who are aligned like you will see that change happening a lot faster. And it's no surprise because if you think about it, when we were in school, even college for that matter, we learned as a community. It's only the only difference is we didn't call it a community, we were part of a class. So today, the way I look at it, if you really want to be able to learn something and you're part of a community, you'll be able to grow much faster. And also, the language that you use when you're learning, it'll be far more supportive. So, that's my take on why it's so important to look at learning as a community sport rather than a solo sport, right? And this is now something that's recognized more and more the world over, that if you're with people who are like you, your ability to absorb is a lot more, your ability to retain is a lot more, and that desire to keep coming back. Because here's the thing, right? When we are learning, we're not going to be amazing on day one. We're going to make mistakes along the way. But when you're with a group, when you're with a community that supports you, today maybe you're having a great day and someone in the community is having a bad day. Tomorrow, maybe they're having a great day and you're like falling and stumbling all over the place. But because you're there to support each other through each other's stumbling phase, you will absorb a lot more and grow a lot faster and deeper. So that's why for me community is a very, very important component.
When I imagine about community and what you just said, when we have stumbling blocks, not every day is the same. So that's why we hold hands, right? We
I love
move
that. Yeah.
together, we move forward together because we are holding hands, so nobody is left behind. And that's the power of community,
That's so
isn't it?
powerful, right? That no, it's like I think this is in the U.S. Special Forces or some one of those army um, groups where they literally have this expression of "leave no man behind." Right. So I think it is in the Special Forces. It's one of those. Like in India, we have the commandos, right? So it's like this is
Right.
literally something that they always say, which is "leave no
Hmm.
man behind." So
Right.
in the work that we're doing, in the work that all of even in amongst your audience, they want to do really well. But when you're able to be
Hmm.
there to support each other, then it takes us to another level altogether.
Right. 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 Exactly. And now, see, you work with many coaches and healers, and I know about that, right? So, what message do you have for those who feel called to help others but doubt their worth or feel like their pain disqualifies them from leading?
I love that. I love the way you frame these because it gives me the thread, right? It's actually the opposite. You say, as you said it, that if they feel their pain disqualifies themselves from helping, it's actually the other way around. It's their pain that qualifies and requalifies them to help others. Like you asked me a few minutes ago about community. I know the pain of studying alone. Like when I studied NLP since 2007, I know how powerful it is, but I also know what it means to study it alone, right? Similarly, when you talk about coaches and healers, and whatever pain you have, to whatever degree you have it, when you are you know willing to tap into it and share that with other people, but from a place of saying, hey, today maybe my pain is at 60%. Last year it was 200%. That in itself is inspiring because somebody else is probably today at 200% listening to you. So it changes the equation completely. And I mean, earlier we used to talk about, in 15, 20 years ago, we used to talk about motivational, being a motivational speaker, and motivation is everything. We've come to realize through study and research as well that motivation is short lived, but it is inspiration, right? And also the perspiration, which means you keep showing up and you keep doing the work. That is long term. So when you have that inspiration and you genuinely are like, yes, every day when I show up, I really believe I can help other people, right? And that comes from knowing that you have pain, but also knowing that your pain today is less than yesterday or 6 months ago or 2 years ago. That is what will connect other people to realize that other people who are coaches and healers or people who you're meant to work with, that, all is not lost, that things only get better with time. And who better than to listen to you, because you know what it is to have 200% pain, you know what it is to have 60% pain today, and possibly in the future you will have this particular pain will be probably negligible, and maybe there'll be a different kind of pain, right? So that
Love.
becomes the new adventure that you're on, and you continue to inspire other people.
Mm. Right, lovely. And Rahul bhai, I want to just keep on talking with you, keep on talking, right? I love just doing that. But I know, I understand you have time constraints as well. But I don't want to stop myself asking one thing because I was just going through your website. I know you are all about transformations, right? But you mentioned there something about your upcoming iHypnosis life transformation. You have specifically changed it to transformation
Yeah,
retreat. So, what is it all about? See,
beautiful.
because I didn't get to know too much just by
Mm-hmm.
looking at, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
ठीक है आज opportunity है,
Huh.
let me hear it out from you only कि what
Right.
can someone expect and who is that space meant for, because I think
Lovely.
it's in Bangalore from
Yes,
14th to 16th November,
that's
right?
correct. That's correct.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Love that.
please
So,
please I would love to know about it.
yeah, so I'll again go in the reverse order, which is, um, as you rightly said, this is happening in Bangalore. This is the iHypnosis Life Transformations Retreat that's happening in Bangalore, in a beautiful location that we found that has, surrounded by trees and water bodies, and November, Bangalore. So obviously the weather is, at one of its best times. Over those 3 days, we will be hosting people who are coaches, healers, and of course, people who are seekers. So, whether you're right now in that phase of just wanting to focus on self healing, or maybe you're at a point now where you are a coach, where you are a healer, as I was talking about community a little while ago, it's so important to be amongst people who are like us. So these 3 days are designed as a way for you to connect, as a way for you to be able to spend that time together. We do, of course, meet on Zoom and we do a lot of deep inner work, but this is the opportunity for you to be able to do this in person. And I'm sure, as you also know, and our audience also would know, when you're amongst people in real time, there's a lot of transformation that happens which is very hard to describe, but there's just something about it. Like, it's like saying, even when we were in school, probably even in college, and we went for a camp, there was something very, very powerful that happened, which was because we were all together as human beings, not just digitally but physically in that same space.
Physically, yes.
So that's why this retreat is happening in person. And the second part, which is very rightly, like you picked up on the word transformation, as in TRANCE, formation. Um, I believe that, there is trance that is forming all the time, just like we have now been having different kinds of trances that have been forming over the last 1 hour plus that we've been talking.
Right.
So this retreat is all about experiencing that transforming, and also where you're able to take it back into your own individual spaces so that you can make a difference in the lives of people who you are connected to. So, especially if you're talking about coaches and healers, you can take the experiences that you had over those 3 days and amplify that with other people, regardless of what kind of a coach or a healer you are, or more importantly, even as a seeker, right? Because we've all been seekers at some point, and then at some point we realize that, oh, this is actually my purpose. I'm meant to take this word out, just like what you do through your voice and through all the things that you do. You're helping so many people build their futures. You're literally changing generations with the work that you're doing, whether you realize it or
Thank
not.
you.
But it's true.
Yeah.
You've done it
Thank
in
you.
the past. It's not like you started today. You've done it in the past, and you continue to do it now. So that's why the transformations is designed so that people can continue to go out and do the great work. And of course, we all know it's not just that raised energy for those 3 days, it's also what comes after that. So we have a program called the iHypnosis Life Mastery. And at level one program is, like we have the Olympics opening ceremony and closing ceremony.
Sir.
The opening ceremony is happening on day two, where the entire day, which is a Saturday, the 15th of November, we will be, doing a lot of deep inner work, a lot of inner healing, and that will continue on over the course of time all the way till March 8th, where we will be doing the closing ceremony, which again will be
Okay.
happening in a retreat. So this
Acha.
is,
Cool.
like a long-term plan as well, where
Mm.
we'll continue to meet over time between March and now. So we're talking November, December, Jan, Feb, and then all the way into the on the 8th of March, where we will have the closing ceremony as well, the
So if
graduation
as
essentially.
it's like just 15 days left for the
Mm-hmm,
right,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
so anybody who's watching our show,
mm-hmm,
listening to it,
mm-hmm.
can they also join?
100%, 100%. Right.
So
So for
please do
some
share
people,
the link with me
I
so
will
that
be
I
definitely
they
doing
can
that.
connect with
Yes.
you.
Yes. Right. So there
Hmm.
are two parts to this. There are some of our members who are already in the community, so they will be there. Plus, for
Hmm.
someone, this would be their first experience of, meeting me in person. Plus, they'll also get to meet people in our community and build those bonds and continue to do this work all the way into March. And of course, we have more of these programs that we're running through the year. But this will be like their first experience. And for people who genuinely connect, the idea is that you get to learn more, and you get to not only for yourself, but you also get to take these skills, just like you learned graphotherapy, and now you are using it in your own unique way with your audience. So the skills that they learn, which is primarily hypnosis and NLP, and all the other things that I have learned over time, which are like, I may not have a word for it or a phrase for it, but it's like you're getting all of that in one. But on the surface, yes, you're learning skills of NLP and hypnosis, and let's say my experiences of the last 20 plus years. So you're getting all of that in that 3 day process, and it will continue on all the way into the new year, right?
Cool, cool. Thank you, Rahul. It was lovely talking to you as always.
Likewise, Kapil bhai.
Uh,
It's been an.
and
I've always had a
definitely,
wonderful time.
I want to, yeah, I want to talk to you again and again and again on my podcast, right? So,
So
but
be it.
yeah,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you, Puka.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Wow, what a session, right? And thank you, Rahul, for bringing so much depth, truth, and heart to today's conversation, right? And, to everyone listening, remember, You're not limited by your past. You're shaped by your beliefs, your identity, and the stories you carry. And the beautiful part, you can rewrite them anytime. So if something shifted inside you today, don't ignore it. Follow it. Transformation isn't a miracle, it's a choice repeated daily with courage. And if this episode inspired you, take a moment today to ask yourself, who am I becoming? And if you are ready to explore deeper inner work, healing, and identity transformation, make sure you follow Rahul George and learn more about the iHypnosis life movement. Share this episode with someone who needs hope, clarity, and courage right now. So till then, thank you. Thank you for joining us today on the Kapil Gupta Career Pod Show. Thank you.